We now come to the first statement. I call the Secretary of State for Transport.
Mr Speaker, I'd like to make a statement on the Government's plans for Northern Powerhouse Rail. I realise I'm not the first Minister ever to talk about transforming infrastructure in the north of England. I get why people there are sick to the back teeth of Westminster politicians promising the earth and delivering absolutely nothing. Parties, whether the Tories or Reform, who lack ambition and are either incapable or unwilling of doing the hard yards of delivery. This ends today, Mr Speaker. It's been over a decade since the then Conservative Chancellor pledged a transport system fit for a northern powerhouse. And what came of it? HS2 to Manchester and Leeds, both promised, both axed. Rail services that have let down commuters, and a railway still reliant on diesel trains and two-track Victorian infrastructure. Levelling up, the integrated rail plan, Network North, just empty slogans and even emptier pockets to pay for them. Mr Speaker, this gulf between rhetoric and reality has consequences. An unbalanced economy doesn't just affect growth. It strikes at the heart of the fairer country we want to be. Political choices over decades now mean a 40-mile commute into Manchester is a world away from a similar journey into London. Take Liverpool, which has only 2 fast trains an hour to Manchester, where a direct rail journey to Manchester Airport takes an hour and 25 minutes when it's only 28 miles away. Or take Leeds, still the largest city in Western Europe without mass transit, with only a third of the population able to reach the city centre in 30 minutes. Mr Speaker, we are finally consigning this sorry political legacy to the bonfire of history. No previous government has acted as swiftly and decisively to back northern leaders. We've made the largest ever investment into local transport. We've given the go-ahead to road and rail projects across the north, and we're allocating billions of pounds in pothole funding to local leaders across this Parliament. And today, Mr Speaker, we're going further. After years of underinvestment in the North's rail network, I am proud to announce we will deliver Northern Powerhouse Rail. This is a generational commitment, building on the ongoing Transpennine route upgrade. We will invest up to a further £45 billion to create a turn-up-and-go railway along the northern growth corridor of Liverpool, Manchester, Bradford, Leeds, Sheffield, as well as York. There will be regular services onward to Newcastle and Hull and to Chester for connections to North Wales. Make no mistake, NPR will transform how people travel. We'll end the hour-long waits if you miss your train. We'll attract more people to a railway that will be faster, more accessible and more frequent than ever before. For northerners who have long complained about being treated as second-class citizens, my message is simple. Those days are over. Mr Speaker, this is an ambitious long-term programme, but it is not HS2 reheated. I stood in this House last year and said we'd learnt the lessons of that infrastructure project, and I meant it. Unlike the previous government's Network North plan, which was announced without so much as a phone call to the mayors, we have been working directly with them on developing these proposals, and I'm proud to announce that every single one of those mayors is backing the plan today. I'm clear that NPR will not be a central government vanity project. It will be rooted in northern communities, designed, developed and delivered from the bottom up. We'll also take the time to get this right. That starts with agreeing mature, stable designs as well as consents, all before construction. Finally, unlike HS2, this isn't about the fastest line at any cost. Northern Powerhouse Rail will be the shoulders of this nation's rail network, improving services across the north and beyond. Let me now turn to delivery, Mr Speaker. We are making £1.1 billion available to deliver MPR over the next 4 years. This will proceed in 3 phases, sequenced so passengers experience a better railway as soon as possible. The first phase will prioritise electrification and upgrades east of the Pennines for delivery in the 2030s. That covers the Leeds-Bradford, Sheffield-Leeds and Leeds-York corridors, including the stations. Alongside MPR, we'll develop the business case for the Leamside line as part of our broader plans for the North. And I want to pay tribute to the Honourable Member for Washington and Gateshead South, who has been campaigning on this for over 20 years. Mr. Speaker, Phase 1's benefits will be clear. It means pressing forward with plans for a new station in Bradford, with funding secured to take it forward subject to business case. And it means working with local leaders on a redesigned York Station master plan. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to recognise the work carried out by Lord Blunkett in his Yorkshire Plan for Rail. It was his vision, endorsed by the White Rose Mayors, which informed our plans for Phase 1. And I'm proud that Lord Blunkett is backing our plans today. Work also starts now for the second phase, west of the Pennines, with major construction planned for the 2030s. It includes a new route and predominantly new line between Liverpool and Manchester. This will run via new stations, improving access to Manchester Airport from across the North and North Wales and to Warrington Bank Quay, with plans to deliver thousands of new homes. I have today instructed my officials to immediately resume work on the adapted hybrid bill so we can reach planning consent for the parts of the route in Manchester. These plans align with the prospectus of the Liverpool to Manchester Railway Board, and I'd like to thank all of them, including the chair of that board, the former Rail Minister Hugh Merriman, who is also backing our plans today. Mr. Speaker, the third phase, which takes us to the 2040s, will improve connectivity across the Pennines, over and above the Trans-Pennine route upgrade currently underway. And I see Bradford to Manchester, Leeds to Manchester and Sheffield to Manchester as key routes we will upgrade. Mr. Speaker, if we are to secure Britain's long-term growth, we must also recognise future capacity and connectivity is needed along other major routes, such as the West Coast Main Line, and ensure that this is reflected in our decision-making now. I can therefore confirm this government's long-term aim to see a full new north-south line from Birmingham to Manchester. That's one of the reasons why we have chosen the Liverpool to Manchester route as put forward by local mayors, because it's the only route that properly preserves our ability to ultimately build a new line south to address longer-term congestion and crowding challenges on the West Coast Main Line. Again, this won't be a revival of HS2, and no decisions have been taken on the specification or timetable. In the meantime, we'll retain land the government has already purchased between the West Midlands and Crewe. This will be an incremental programme of change, and delivery will be taken forward after MPR has been built. Nevertheless, I believe laying out now our strategy is sensible, responsible and in the long-term interests of the country. Mr. Speaker, today we're announcing a second rail revolution in the very region that gave us the first. The North powered Britain's past. It can lead this country's future. This plan is a down payment on the North's potential, part of a broader growth drive to lift the region's productivity, boost living standards and add tens of billions to the UK economy. At the heart of this lies connectivity, because only by strengthening the links between our northern cities, only by bringing the pools of talent there closer together, can the region begin to rival the other major growth corridors in Europe. Mr. Speaker, too many northerners still face the choice of either staying at home and putting aspiration on hold or moving away in search of a better future. I say no more unfair choices, no more missed opportunities. Today we start delivering Northern Powerhouse Rail, and I commend this statement to the House.
Mayhew, Shadow Minister.
much, Mr. Speaker, and may I thank the Secretary of State for advance sight of her statement. Now, she started her statement by saying that people are sick to the back teeth of Westminster politicians promising the earth and delivering absolutely nothing, and then she did exactly that. Because on this side of the House, we know, Mr. Speaker, what the Right Honourable Lady's statement marks today. It's not a strategy for the North. It's not a genuine commitment to a £46 billion project, costed back in 2019 at £46 billion, as the current Prime Minister then promised. Instead, it's a flagrant attempt to silence her party's restless northern mayors, whilst Labour ministers who came to office with no plan to deliver on their promises butcher the budget. Let's get straight to the point here. She can bluster all she likes, but where Northern Powerhouse Rail is concerned, today we have no construction start dates, no completion dates, no published or costed route map, no sequencing, no idea who will pay, nor by how much, and no certainty at all, except it won't be what Labour promised ahead of the election. She says, Mr. Speaker, this is a generational commitment. Well, at this rate, it's going to turn out to be a multi-generational commitment. Because if the Prime Minister wanted to deliver what he actually promised in opposition, he knows he'd have another black hole of billions. Such is the uncertainty, the genuine uncertainty caused to the sector by this announcement. What we have, Mr. Speaker, is a commitment to fiddling with the paperwork without any secure investment for the actual project. Yet the Right Honourable Lady expects this House to believe that this is some sort of investment in the North. She and her ministers must be delighted that the Mayor of Greater Manchester overplayed his hand at the Labour Party conference last year. So today he feels constrained to profess loyalty to the Prime Minister, perhaps wonderment at his generosity. That's in public. We all know what he's doing in private. Does the Right Honourable Lady take this House and her own backbenchers and the voting public for fools? Whether she does or not, the Prime Minister certainly does. He wrote in the Yorkshire Post with some gall that this amountment, and I quote, is a serious plan backed by billions of pounds of investment, when we know from this statement that it is not. Can the Right Honourable Lady confirm how a £45 billion cap on a scheme that was costed way more expensive than that back in 2019 can possibly deliver projects which are already estimated to be so much more than that value? What guarantees exist that schemes will be completed in full, and when this House will be finally given the detail that it deserves? Because perhaps she ought to remind the Prime Minister what he told the Yorkshire Post back in 2019, promising to deliver Northern Powerhouse in full. Today's announcement offers nothing better than dither, delay, and a further decade away from spades in the ground. How can she and the Prime Minister pretend that this is the delivery of Northern Powerhouse Rail when it is anything but that? By their own admission, no budget has been set out. The cap in funding gives no confidence that funding which will have to be raised from the private sector or through local taxes is in place. So can she tell the House which local taxes will have to rise and by how much to fill the gap created by her own £45 billion cap? I know she, like me, cares deeply about ensuring Parliament is told the whole truth. But perhaps on this occasion it is the Prime Minister himself who should be lauded today when he said, time and again, that the cuts and downgrades this government has foreshadowed today represent nothing more than, and I quote, a betrayal of the North. So I ask the Secretary of State, isn't it the case that this is a strategy from a desperate government to make a cut appear an investment, an attempt to save face with the British public, to spend months and months hiding their mealy-mouthed plans, only to reveal them with bluster and misplaced confidence, is a sad indictment of a sorry government. To come to this House today without dates, budgets and a plan for how to raise shortfalls after the cap is frankly pitiful. To spin this as a plan for the future is a disgrace, and one of which she should be ashamed. She cannot escape the facts that her party came to power with no plan on how to deliver on their promises, and their complete ineptitude at managing the public finances means they're now having to U-turn even on those promises. If the Metro mayors and backbenchers had any backbone, then rather than genitalously jostling for position under the next Labour leader, today they'd be acknowledging the truth in what I've said and calling out this betrayal.
Secretary of State.
Very underwhelming.
Mr. Speaker, I can't believe what I've heard, to be honest. I mean, I know he's standing in for the Shadow Transport Secretary today, but really I hoped he would have done a little bit better than that. He talks about no budget being set out. We have set out £1.1 billion to be spent over the next 4 years, far more than his government ever spent on Northern Powerhouse Rail in the 14 years they had an opportunity to make improvements to the rail network in the north of England. If that's the way they approach basic maths when we're spending over £1 billion, I can see why the public booted them out of office at the last election. Mr. Speaker, we are working in collaboration with local mayors, and we have agreed with local mayors that where they see opportunity to boost economic growth beyond the core scope of the Northern Powerhouse Rail proposals, we will work with them to agree local contributions so the full benefits of this investment can be realised. Mr. Speaker, more generally though, I think this was a classic case of the honourable gentleman writing the questions without listening to the announcement. We are delivering Northern Powerhouse Rail in full. We have set out our plans in full, we are funding MPR in full, and we will deliver it. He mentions the previous government and their aspirations. Let me remind the House of what that actually amounted to. The plan that got the location of Manchester wrong on a map. The plan that promised new tram lines that had already been built. The plan that diverted funding away from the north to fix potholes in the south. That plan was not worth the paper it was written on, and so we'll take no lessons on this from the party opposite. But if he won't listen to me, maybe he'll listen to the people who run our great city regions in the north. The mayors of West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire and North Yorkshire said we welcome the government's once-in-a-generation commitment to improving transport across the north. The mayor of the Liverpool City region said after more than a decade of dither, delay and broken promises, this is the start of a new era with a genuinely strategic approach and a government finally backing Northern Powerhouse Rail in full. The mayor of Greater Manchester said finally, we have a government with an ambitious vision for the north and a firm commitment to Northern Powerhouse Rail. And let me quote one more person. MPR is a project I've long championed, so it is excellent to see the government backing it in full. Not the words of a Labour mayor, not the words of a Labour minister, but the words of former Conservative Rail Minister Hugh Merriman. Mr. Speaker, our plans are backed by the mayors, they're backed by business leaders, they're backed by their own former Rail Minister. That tells you everything you need to know about who is delivering for the North and who never did.
Ruth Cadbury, Chair of the Select Committee.
Mr. Speaker, this is another hugely welcome transport statement from the Secretary of State for Transport and her team. Today's announcement promises levels of rail connectivity for communities from Merseyside to Tyneside that will compare with that of the London travel to work area. The question I and many have today is when will we have more details about the timescales and the potential funding sources for phase 1 and 2, and most importantly phase 3 of today's statement. Phase 3 being linking Birmingham with the Northern Powerhouse Rail network, so desperately needed, so cruelly and ridiculously cancelled by the party opposite when they were in government, so that we can relieve the pressure on the West Coast Main Line and link up London and Birmingham with the cities of the north.
The Chair of the Transport Select Committee is completely right to say that the proposals that we're announcing today will deliver rail services for the north that are comparable to those in London and the South East. A turn-up-and-go railway where you can go to the station, not having to check the timetable before you go, because you know that a train will be there within a reasonable time frame. And you know that if you miss your train, you're not going to have to wait for an hour to get the next one. She's right to press me on timing about when more information is going to become available about the different phases. The first phase of improvement relates to the corridors into Leeds from Sheffield, Bradford and York. We will be progressing with urgency on those, as well as the plans for the new line between Manchester and Liverpool. Phase 3 of MPR relates to further cross-Transpennine improvements beyond the Transpennine route upgrade. And we will be saying more in due course about our plans for Birmingham to Manchester, noting that the delivery of that will come after MPR has been completed.
Tim Farron, Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I have read the statement and indeed listened to her carefully, and I'm very grateful for early sight of it. We are massive supporters of Northern Powerhouse Rail on these benches. But we actually have, all we have really concrete in this statement, is just over £1 billion, so we can spend the next 4 years planning to maybe come up with another plan. So the failure of the previous Conservative government to deliver infrastructure projects like this and HS2 was utterly depressing and embarrassing, but I hope she will understand the scepticism of many of us in the north, not just on these benches, who fear this government is being worryingly pedestrian too, lacking in the determination to deliver vital projects like these. High-speed rail for the north delivered at snail's pace if we are lucky. So my questions are, would I be right to surmise from her announcement that while we will see upgrades in the 2030s, which is a long time away still, we won't actually see trains running on the new track much before 2045? What confidence can she give us that we won't see even more slippage in that timetable? What guarantees can she give us that we won't now see a repeat of the Conservatives' approach of stop-start, 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 cancel? And finally, of course, could I remind the Minister that the north of England does not stop at the M62? And while we are proud of our cities of Leeds and Manchester and Liverpool, the biggest visitor destination in the north of England is actually Cumbria. Yet there is not a single mention of either Cumbria or Lancashire in this statement. Nothing on the vital upgrades, needed to the West Coast Main Line north of Warrington, especially in the light of the recent derailment at Shap. And we still continue to wait for the government to invest in the all-important Lakes Line to Windermere, where a simple passing loop at Burneside would double the line's capacity at a fraction of the cost of Northern Powerhouse Rail, directly connecting Manchester Airport to the heart of the English Lake District. Might the Minister agree to meet with me to discuss these vital projects to help prove this government's concern for the North includes the actual North?
Mr Speaker, I can assure the honourable gentleman that we are getting on with this and we will see these improvements delivered. I don't share his cynicism that we will spend the next 4 years simply coming up with a plan. The £1.1 billion that has been allocated is for land acquisitions, it's for early preparatory works on the Yorkshire schemes. We will see delivery in the 2030s and passengers seeing benefits of some of those schemes. But what I won't do is make the same mistakes as the last government when it came to HS2, who let contracts before the scope of schemes had been finalised, essentially a free meal ticket for building contractors. We will take the time to do this properly, spend taxpayer money wisely. Of course, I want to see the delivery of rail infrastructure speeded up, but I also want to make sure that every single penny of money that this government spends is well spent. He asks about whether I can reassure him about the stop-start nature of plans being drawn up and then delivered. We have taken our time to come up with a credible, sequenced, prioritised programme of improvements in stark contrast to the previous government, and I can assure him that this is a plan for the whole of the north of England. And I'd also gently remind him, when it comes to Cumbria and our government's commitment, over £13 million investment from the Department for Transport in Carlisle Station, Cumberland with an £18 million multi-year bus funding deal, Borders Rail Viability Study, £10 million. So he should remember that we are investing across the north of England in improving public transport for the travelling public.
Lucy Powell.
Speaker, and it's nice to speak from the backbenches for the first time in a very, very long time. Can I strongly welcome this commitment to Northern Powerhouse Rail and the vision that underpins it? This will be game-changing for the North. After decades of underinvestment, poor connectivity and years of indecision by the party opposite, this really is going to transform lives. But does she agree with me that in order to ensure that long-term reliability, the capacity for generations to come, we have to solve the problem of Manchester Piccadilly Station finally having through capacity in an underground station, which will truly unlock the connectivity between Liverpool, Leeds or Sheffield and Manchester Airport and unlock the real potential of the whole regions across the north?
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend for her contribution, and she talks about Manchester Piccadilly, and I'm reminded of the words of Mayor Andy Burnham, who has said to me that he sees the potential for Manchester Piccadilly as being a King's Cross for the north. I agree with her that we need to resolve the issue of throughput through that station, and I will be working very closely with the Mayor on plans for that station to ensure that we can unlock the regeneration that we are all united in wanting to see in the heart of the great city of Manchester.
Robbie Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've spent years fighting to ensure that Bradford is at the heart of the North's rail network, and therefore I very much welcome today's announcement. But after decades of empty promises for the North from Whitehall, my constituents also need clarity. Secretary of State, we have seen 13 U-turns in 18 months from this government, including the West Yorkshire tram network. So I ask the Secretary of State, how much will be specifically spent on Bradford Station project, and when will the Bradford Station project be completed? Because with 4 general elections, at least 4 general elections between now and 2045, which is the period of time that this statement relates to, my constituents and I are worried that this simply will be another future U-turn in the future.
I can wholeheartedly assure him that this is good news for Bradford Station. I've been working very closely with Councillor Susan Hinchcliffe, the leader of Bradford Council, and of course Mayor Tracy Brabing, the Mayor for West Yorkshire. We will be pressing forward with the work that's already underway with the Council on a business case for Bradford Station, and I'm very conscious that in doing so we'll be putting a young, dynamic city of 500,000 people at the heart of the Northern Rail network. We expect to reach decisions on the station by summer of this year, and we have made funding available to then move forward into detailed design subject to the conclusions of that business case.
Mike Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. February will represent the 25th anniversary of the opening of runway 2 at Manchester Airport in my constituency. With capacity for 60 million passengers, this announcement will finally allow it to achieve its full potential. Does the Secretary of State not agree?
I wholeheartedly agree with my good friend, and the selection of the route between Liverpool and Manchester was to a large degree determined by the importance of providing better connectivity to Manchester Airport, not just for people in the northwest, but also those travelling across the Pennines from other parts of the north of England. It has the potential to be a real generator of economic output, and I look forward to working with him further on the proposals, given how dear I know that airport is to him and his constituents.
Tom Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I completely disagree with the Tory spokesperson's comments about the betrayal of the North from this Labour government. Whilst I don't think this plan's by any means perfect, it's a damn sight better than what we saw from the last government. The last week's transport oral questions, I pressed the Minister about the improvements to the York Area Capacity Scheme and was told that it was not ruled out. But I was surprised to see that in the statement and the documents circulated today, there was no mention of that York Area Capacity Scheme, which would relieve pressure and congestion at Skelton Junction, which would improve rail network and connectivity across the north. So will the Secretary of State rule out the cancellation of the Skelton Junction improvements, and will she commit to making sure that they are part of the scheme going forward, and why they weren't in this document today?
Can I say to the honourable gentleman that in the announcement today, we are ruling things in. We are not excluding things from funding through other funding sources. We will be setting out in the normal way future rail network enhancement programme funding, for example, and so I'm happy to continue the conversation with him about what further benefits we can bring to the York area. The benefits of MPR in particular we'll be working with David Skaith, the Mayor of Yorkshire and North Yorkshire, on the master plan for York Station and the massive brownfield regeneration opportunity, one of the largest in Europe, that lies directly next to that station.
I want to help everybody. Those who have actually got involvement in this are the ones I really do want to get in. We've got 3 statements on, so hopefully we can get, because I really know it matters, especially to the north, we've got to get the people in. So please, if we can help each other, it would be really useful. Jim McMahon.
Because this is welcome. The north of England has been held back for far too long, with the people and its economy not being allowed to realise our full potential. And so too is a commitment to properly review the Manchester-Piccadilly Underground alongside the Mayor of Greater Manchester. Without this, it leaves one route in and one route out, with trains forced to turn back onto the network, slower, second rate, and it's not something the North can support. But can I ask for more details? Firstly, on the funding of the Manchester Airport local contribution, to ensure that it's both fair and at a level that can be fairly raised locally. And secondly, on the timing of the Birmingham to Manchester line, can we have a clearer idea of timescales from the dispatch box?
I can assure my honourable friend that we will be having detailed conversations with local partners, including Manchester Airport, and we will ensure that any contribution is fair and locally agreed. It is important that organisations that will benefit directly from the improvement of rail links make a contribution, and I look forward to those discussions happening in the coming months and years. He asked about timing for the Manchester to Birmingham element of the route. I have been clear that the priority for investment are the 3 stages of the Northern Powerhouse Rail scheme, and so the improvements to Birmingham to Manchester would come after these schemes have completed construction, so into the 2040s.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sadly, we've heard all this before, and yes, I admit that some of the ambitious proposals of the last government haven't come to fruition. But the Labour government are now... The Labour government are now finding that it's very easy to criticise. I don't recall that the criticism coming from Labour benches when we were in power was, don't worry, by 2050 we can solve the problem. Right. It was that you had immediate answers. Could I suggest to the Secretary of State that instead of these ambitious proposals, she actually announced something that she could deliver? If she shook her petty cash tin, she could find the few £1,000s it would need to extend the King's Cross to Lincoln service through to Grimsby and Cleethorpes and boost the local economy there.
Come on, you're making a statement, not even a question in there. Secretary of State, I'm sure you could just rustle up a quick answer.
I will ask the Rail Minister to write to the honourable gentleman and update him on the particular scheme that he is advocating.
Sharon Hodgson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Can I welcome this fantastic announcement today, particularly regarding the Leenside line, which runs from Keighley and Gateshead through my constituency in Washington and on to Ferry Hill in County Durham. as well as being the line that will finally bring the Metro to Washington, which I have campaigned on since I first stood to be an MP back in 2005. This investment will be transformative for my constituents and the whole North East. And so although we are still a little way off spades in the ground, does the Minister agree with me that this truly is the difference that a Labour government, together with Kim McGuinness, our Labour North East Mayor, makes?
Can I just pay tribute once again to the long campaigning that my honourable friend has done for the Leamside line. I recall her excitement when we announced the extension of the Tyne-and-Wear Metro to Washington as part of the spending review, and I look forward to working with her further on the work we will be doing to look at the business case for the reopening of the Leamside line that I know closed many decades ago.
Lisa.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. Safe, reliable and affordable railways are vital for economic growth in communities like mine, so I welcome the Secretary of State's statement today, because we haven't seen that investment in our northern communities for too long. For too long, our infrastructure has been neglected, and as a result, our northern communities haven't been able to fulfil their potential. I want to build on what some Greater Manchester colleagues have been asking about Manchester Piccadilly and some of the enabling work around Ardwick and around Ashbury's that would unlock improving services to communities like mine, so on the Rose Hill line, or maybe even tram train to Marple. How can the Secretary of State ensure that communities like mine can feed in, so we make this project reach its full potential, so it gets a 10 out of 10 rather than a mediocre meh?
One of the reasons we've taken our time to make sure that we're working with the local mayors is so that we can properly ensure that the improvements to intercity connections that will be delivered through MPR can be integrated with local improvements as well. Mayors in the north of England have had a multi-billion-pound funding settlement through Transport for City Regions, and really to unlock the regeneration potential in many of the towns and cities that we know have untapped potential, we need to make sure we get that integration right.
Imran Hussain.
Mr. Speaker, and I strongly welcome this statement, which recognises that Bradford, one of the largest and youngest cities, cannot be left behind any longer. I, along with my colleagues, the Honourable Member for Bradford South, Madam Deputy Speaker, and the Leader of Bradford Council, have long campaigned for a new station and better connectivity for over a decade. But what we cannot have, Mr. Speaker, is Bradford to wait another 2 decades. So can the Secretary of State confirm that the new station and the connectivity will be part of phase 1 of this programme?
I know he has championed the station in Bradford enormously over recent years, and I can assure him that we will press forward with the work already underway with the Council on a business case for the station, and as I said, to reach decisions by the summer of this year, and we have made funding available to then move forward into detailed design pending those decisions.
Sarah Poacher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a North West MP, I of course welcome all efforts to improve connectivity across the north for my constituents of Runcorn and Helsby, but the devil is always in the detail. And I've looked at the Liverpool to Manchester proposals, and they're actually 20 minutes slower than one currently exists now. And also the Secretary of State talks about improving accessibility to Manchester Airport, but this link actually stops a mile outside of the airport, and you have to get a bus into the airport, so it actually doesn't even go to the airport. Would the Secretary of State assure the House that she will review the points that I've just made? Thank you.
I'm interested to hear the Honourable Lady's contribution, Madam Deputy Speaker. She claims that she is supportive of anything that improves the public transport network in the north of England, and yet the Reform Party in September of last year came out in clear objection to the Northern Powerhouse rail scheme, basically telling the public that they should just accept their lot and be grateful. So I look forward to hearing from her colleagues in future about whether they have reversed their position on Northern Powerhouse rail and finally seen the light.
Graham Stringer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I appreciate the way the Secretary of State introduced this, recognising the lack of investment there has been in the north of England. But it isn't even as though there hasn't been jam to go around. At the same time, there has been almost zero new investment in the north of England. We've had Javelin trains, the Jubilee line extension, Thameslink now, the Elizabeth line, and all the expenditure on HS2 in the south of England. So, given all that money has weighed down the south of England, and the crucial part of this scheme, which I pay tribute to the Secretary of State for recognising, of the underground station at Piccadilly, does she think it's fair that local contributions will be expected for that scheme when most of the other schemes have been paid out of direct taxation? Why should the north not be treated the same way that the south is being served? Is it fair that taxpayers, local taxpayers, have to pay for what is part of the national infrastructure?
I do agree with the honourable gentleman that the public in the north of England have had to put up with the second-rate transport system for far too long. We're determined to right that historic wrong, invest in the necessary upgrades and get spades in the ground. I would observe that when it came to the delivery of the Elizabeth line and Crossrail, there was a local contribution through a business rates retention scheme. And indeed, if you look at other investments in the capital, there's been enterprise zones, land value capture, and those are some of the ideas we would like to discuss with Northern mayors.
And Our Madam Dirprwy Llefarydd. Today's announcement directly affects Wales, given that the Northern Powerhouse Rail is a project that Wales is footing the bill for, along with HS2 and the Oxford-Cambridge Rail. Although I have to say I'm delighted for my northern friends that they're getting this. The price tag now owed to Wales adds up to around £6 billion, yet the government expects us to be satisfied with the £445 million over 10 years that we're having in Wales instead. So how much longer does the Secretary of State think that this farce can go on? Isn't it time that rail was devolved so funding can be directed back towards the people of Wales instead of any other project which is classified as an England-Wales?
The £445 million investment that was announced at the spending review is historic, and we do recognise that there has been underinvestment in Welsh infrastructure. This is really significant investment. It will deliver new stations, faster journeys and better services for passengers, as well as connecting people to jobs and driving economic growth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Could I first of all thank the Secretary of State for the improvements announced to the Sheffield-Leeds line and some of the improvements to Sheffield-Manchester, though, as my right-hand friend's already said, we need a through route to Manchester Airport as well. In particular, I want to ask her about the tram-train project, which she and Oliver Cobbard have committed to doing the business case at work on. My honourable friend for Penistone Stocksbridge has certainly fought for this as well. Could I say to her, Germany's been running tram trains for 40 years. We've had one pilot scheme in this country between Sheffield and Rotherham which has worked as a success. Can she now see the development of tram trains generating growth, housing and jobs in Sheffield as a precursor to rolling tram trains out across the country, which will be beneficial to a lot more areas?
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend for that contribution, and he and I have spoken about this issue in recent months. I've also had more recent conversations with the Mayor of South Yorkshire about his aspirations around tram train, and I look forward to working with him closely to make sure that we properly integrate the benefits that are going to be brought through Northern Powerhouse Rail with schemes that he wants to see promoted in the South Yorkshire Combined Authority area.
Bill Esterson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituents stand to benefit enormously from the improvements in capacity and connectivity which the Secretary of State announced both to Manchester Airport and indeed to Birmingham. But does she agree that one of the big benefits here, and she talked about growth in her statement, is the impact on reducing congestion on our roads, and indeed the pollution it produces. That is massively important, both whether it's to MPR or to the Birmingham to Manchester and, I would say, Liverpool part of the link in the northwest. And the big difference, it seems to me, between what she announced, or one of the big differences, is that she set out an outline plan. We never had that in the multiple dozens of announcements we had from the party opposite starting in 2014.
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for his question, and he's entirely right that a reliable, affordable, frequent public transport service, including that new rail line between Liverpool and Manchester, will enable and encourage more people to leave the car at home and make those journeys in a more sustainable way. I mean, it strikes me as ludicrous that at the moment it takes an hour and 25 minutes to get a direct train from Liverpool to Manchester Airport for a journey of less than 30 miles, when you can get from Paddington to Reading in 22 minutes, which is a journey of similar length.
Mark Sewards.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As Chair of the Yorkshire and North Lincolnshire APPG, I absolutely welcome that Phase 1 of the Northern Powerhouse Rail project prioritises Yorkshire. It will absolutely generate growth and opportunities for people in my region, and it's something that members of the APPG on both sides of the House have long campaigned for. But with my city, Leeds, in mind, can I ask when my residents will benefit from this Phase 1 investment? And can I also ask the Secretary of State if she agrees with me that we should accelerate the delivery of the West Yorkshire Tram project so that my constituents can benefit both from better railways and a mass transit project?
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman, and I should just say that what we've announced today in terms of improvements for Leeds and the surrounding area is additional to the existing improvement plans for Leeds Station. The government is obviously looking at Leeds South Bank as a potential location for a new town in an existing city, and I'm very aware that Leeds is now known as the Northern Square Mile, given the attractiveness of that city to financial services. I am working closely with Mayor Tracy Brabin to ensure that we deliver the mass transit system, because I think Leeds is the largest city in Western Europe not to have a mass transit system, which we've got to put right.
Alex Serval.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want to warmly welcome the news that we're finally going to get Northern Powerhouse Rail today. The fact that we're starting in Yorkshire is historic. The world's longest continuing railway, Middleton Railway, is operated since 1758, and it will be just metres from the lines that will be improved. Can I ask, that railway helped kick-start the Industrial Revolution. This could kick-start a new revolution for the north of England. Is she working with MHCLG to look at housing growth, to look at jobs growth, to look at maximising the benefits of Northern Powerhouse Rail in the way that our Victorian forebears did?
Very much so, and if we were able to bring productivity in the north up to the average levels of productivity, we would see the UK's economy growing by about £40 billion a year. This is not just about trains, it's not just about tracks, it's about leveraging in private investment, new jobs, new homes, city centre regeneration, breathing life back into our town centres as well. And I look forward to working with him further on it.
Jo White.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As the Secretary of State has just said, this is the evidence that we now have that cross-government working is in action. The Treasury, the Department of Transport and MCHLG, setting the case, establishing confidence that the North is open for business, the place to invest, to build and to live. We have a government that has the self-assurance to shift away from the well-trodden path where growth is traditionally centred on London and the South. The record is clear. The Tories underinvested in the North time and time again, and Reform have already opposed everything that Northern Powerhouse Rail stands for. Their betrayal of the North must never be forgotten. Order, that was so voluble. Please, Jo White. Well, I would welcome the member to withdraw that.
Yeah, I do withdraw that. I'm sorry. I apologise.
Go away. No. Thank you. Order. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Their betrayal of the North must never be forgotten.
Hear, hear.
For this to work, however, we need our council leaders and mayors to play their part. For constituencies like Bassetlaw, Bolsover, North East Derbyshire and Chesterfield, our East Midlands Mayor must be part of the dialogue and the investment strategy for transport planning and connectivity. We all want to open our doors to businesses on the back of this, and will the Secretary of State ensure that our East Midlands Mayor, Claire Ward, has a place around the table?
I work closely with Claire Ward and have enormous respect for the work that she's doing in the East Midlands. I recognise the point too that she was making about the position of the Reform Party on investment in rail in the north of England. I know she had to deal with some chuntering from the other side, and might I just observe that perhaps the Honourable Member for Runcorn might like to just Google what one of her colleagues said back in September, when he was absolutely unequivocal that he would not back Northern Powerhouse Rail and that he would not back better public transport in the north. This Labour government has exactly the opposite ambition.
Anna Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As a member of the Public Accounts Committee who did an inquiry into HS2, I really have to warmly welcome the Secretary of State taking such a disciplined and clear approach to making sure this delivers and delivers on time and value for money, as the TransPennine upgrade has. But as a Bradford MP, I would like, with others I'm sure, Madam Deputy Speaker, to join in thanking the Secretary of State for backing Northern Powerhouse Rail, but particularly for backing Bradford. The new station and the improved link to Leeds will make a massive difference, not only to the city of Bradford, but to the wider district. So will the Secretary of State assure me that these transport investments by this Labour government will deliver not only better connectivity, but also jobs and new homes to the whole of the Bradford district?
Yeah. I'd like to say to my honourable friend that one of the things we have to achieve through Northern Powerhouse Rail is making sure that young people who are growing up in towns and smaller cities around the big conurbations can easily access the high-quality jobs in places like Leeds, places like Manchester and Newcastle. So I can assure her that the approach of this government is one that is about investing in skills, it's about investing in transport, and it's about investing in opportunities for the future.
Powell. Lawrence Turner.
Thanks very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. A little over 2 years has passed since the last Prime Minister chaotically took the axe to HS2 north and east of Birmingham, and the Mayor at the time, Andy Street, failed the test of leadership and failed to stand up for our region. Now, there is an obvious link between the east-west connections that she's been talking about today and the south to north connections along the West Coast main line. So will she meet and her ministers engage with West Midlands MPs about the capacity issues she has set out, and can we not lose sight of the importance of the West Midlands to East Midlands connection, which is as slow as the connections in the north?
I'd be very happy to meet with him and colleagues to discuss this matter further. I'd also like to pay tribute to the work that Mayor Richard Parker has done in the West Midlands alongside Claire Ward in the East Midlands for working collaboratively with us to make sure that we can not only improve intercity connections but also those connections that are so important within big cities as well.
Marie Tidwell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the Secretary of State's announcement today confirming the biggest investment in rail connectivity in a generation, including £7.5 million for South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority to kickstart plans to extend the South Yorkshire Supertram, including to look at a tram train extension to Stocksbridge via Outerbridge, Warncliffe Side and Deepcar in my constituency. Does my right honourable friend agree that this tram train extension will build on the government's commitment today to finally give Yorkshire the transport network our communities deserve?
Yeah. We are committed to giving everyone in Yorkshire the transport networks they deserve. As I said in response to my honourable friend, the member for Sheffield, we do want to work with Mayor Oliver Coppard to explore the potential of tram train further. I know she has been a fearsome advocate as well for the Penistone line in her constituency, and there's further engagement going on with Kirklees Council on that issue as well.
Abdissam Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I also, like my Sheffield colleagues, strongly welcome the government commitment to upgrading our Sheffield station and putting faster and more frequent trains in place to Leeds and Manchester. It will increase our city centre regeneration and will be of strong benefit to our universities and students who commute into the city. Will the Minister meet with me and other South Yorkshire MPs to discuss timescales and ensure that our infrastructure and plans match the economic ambitions for growth and regeneration in Sheffield?
I will certainly ask the Rail Minister to meet with her and colleagues, and I do think that 2 fast services an hour between the key cities of Leeds and Sheffield is simply not good enough. We're committed to improving those services and to providing the capacity that's required at Sheffield Station. I look forward to discussing it further.
Nav Mishra.
Deputy Speaker, this announcement is excellent news for northern towns and cities. Manchester Airport is a large employer in my constituency, and sadly since COVID we lost the direct connectivity from Stockport Station into Manchester Airport. So I think it's important to restore timetables to some of the timetables to pre-COVID time. Can I also encourage the Secretary of State to look at the Access for All scheme, which unfortunately is far too slow and far too many train stations do not have disabled access, and we need to, in order to make rail better for everyone, we need to make it friendly for people with mobility issues. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
I do agree with my honourable friend about the importance of accessibility at rail stations, and I note the case that he makes about Manchester Airport. I would also point out that in addition to the new line between Liverpool and Manchester that we've announced today going via the airport, there is over £100 million of funding going into Manchester Airport Station at the moment to lengthen the platform so we can have longer trains and more frequent services calling there. That's investment that's happening now.
Before I call the next speaker, can I just ask that people keep the questions very short, because otherwise we will not be able to get everybody in. So please help each other out. Conor Naismith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I begin by expressing sincere and enthusiastic thanks to the Secretary of State for the announcements today. I have been campaigning, and some would say badgering, ministers in my entire time in this place to address capacity challenges on the West Coast Main Line arising from the steaming pile of mess left to this government on HS2. So I welcome today's announcement that the government does intend to build a new rail line between Birmingham and Manchester. But following 14 years of mismanagement of projects like this, how can the Secretary of State assure me and my constituents that these projects will actually be delivered, and how will they be insulated against backwards, anti-growth, populist forces who we know would reverse these plans in a heartbeat?
Well said.
We're going to give confidence to the public that when it comes to rail infrastructure, we're spending taxpayers' money wisely. We will learn the mistakes of HS2 and make sure that we do the work properly to start off with, so we're not wasting taxpayers' money in the way that the previous government did with their oversight of HS2.
Luke Charters.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. By my reckoning, York is the biggest winner of this new rail revolution. The new Haxby-York North Station, the York Station Master Plan upgrade, the TPRU route upgrade, and also the fantastic MPR new connections. Which of these does my right honourable friend delivers the most for my constituents?
I'm not entirely sure how to answer that question, Madam Deputy Speaker. He's been a fearsome advocate for his constituents, improving public transport in York and the surrounding areas. I was delighted when we could confirm that we were going to progress Haxby Station in his constituency at the spending review, and I look forward to working with him further to unlock the potential in that city and that region as a result of the proposals that we've announced today.
Elsie Blundell.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I welcome the announcement made today, which will unleash the potential of our northern regions and open the door to opportunities that have historically been denied to my constituents and so many across the north. Would my right honourable friend agree with me that it is the bold and ambitious schemes like Northern Powerhouse Rail that will silence the north's detractors, not that many are in their places today, from the Tories who left our rail network in the north of England on the brink of collapse to Reform who do nothing but talk down the promise of our proud and pioneering region?
I couldn't have put it better myself, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I think she is right that the public want us to be ambitious for the north and to make sure that the benefits of economic growth are spread fairly across the country, and that's precisely what our announcements today with Northern Powerhouse Rail will do.
Dave Robertson.
Speaker, for 17 long years, constituents across Lichfield, Brentford and the villages have had to deal with the complete failure of HS2 Limited, while ministers were asleep at the wheel, and the chaotic Conservative cancellation of that scheme did nothing to alleviate those problems and instead replaced it with uncertainty on uncertainty on uncertainty. Unfortunately, all today's statement does is confirm that that uncertainty will continue for at least another 2 decades. So can the Secretary of State confirm for me that HS2 Limited, who are so hated by my constituents, will have absolutely no part in any rail infrastructure project north of Handsacre, that she will urgently ensure that me and other Staffordshire MPs have an opportunity to meet the Rail Minister, and that we can commit to the redesign for the Birmingham or the Handsacre to Manchester leg of HS2 to be completed quickly with a view to releasing as much safeguarded land as possible, as quickly as possible, so that constituents across my constituency, Staffordshire and further north, do not have to continue to deal with the problems that they've faced for so long.
I will ensure that the Rail Minister meets with the honourable gentleman and regional colleagues. I do recognise that in taking the right long-term strategic decision about capacity and providing more capacity on the West Coast Main Line in future, that there will be some people today who are dealing with more uncertainty, and I want to work with him and with HS2 to make sure that we treat those people with the respect that they deserve, and that we seek to minimise the disruption to people's lives as far as possible.
Sean Davies.
Conservative government, Telford became one of the largest towns in the country without a direct link into London. A train line which is overcrowded into Birmingham and into mid-Wales, and private operators falling over themselves to provide a solution being blocked by the Office of Road and Rail. I welcome today's announcements, particularly around the links between Birmingham and Manchester, but will she meet with me or the Rail Minister to explore all options to get Telford connected to the capital?
I'd be very happy to organise a meeting between him and the Rail Minister. He refers to some of the congestion challenges on the West Coast Main Line with regard to train paths and actually putting new services on. And that is why we have taken that long-term strategic decision today, recognising that we will have to address congestion and capacity challenges on that part of the rail network. And as I say, I'd be happy to organise that meeting for him.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And like you, I am a proud Northerner, but for too long we've had to face challenges of underinvestment in the north. So this is good news, particularly for Yorkshire. The plans for Northern Powerhouse Rail, alongside the upgrades to the Trans-Pennine route, which is on time and on budget, will be a game changer for our communities and economy. So can the Secretary of State state how this will particularly support regeneration and communities in northern towns like Huddersfield, and how MPR will build on and connect to the Trans-Pennine route upgrade?
Phase 3 of the plans that we have announced today will deliver improvements above and beyond the work that is happening at the moment with the Trans-Pennine route upgrade. And she's right to highlight the success of that programme in being on time and on budget, very different from the mega project of HS2. and I'm very keen that we emulate the successes of the Trans-Pennine route upgrade through Northern Powerhouse Rail. Of course, it provides great opportunities as well to the thousands of people who are currently employed on the Trans-Pennine route upgrade, who can go on and get jobs working on the Northern Powerhouse Rail programme in future.
Jill Derman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is brilliant news today, not just for the north of England, but for North Wales too. With investment already in place for the North Wales main line, this will give us better connectivity for tourism and for employment and leisure to our great northern cities and beyond. So does the Secretary of State agree with me that we must continue to work together cross-border to give my constituents in Clwyd North the seamless transport system they deserve?
I do agree with my honourable friend, and I have a very close working relationship with Ken Skates, the Welsh Cabinet Member for Transport. He and I working on how best to prioritise that record £445 million that the government committed at the spending review to improve Welsh rail infrastructure. And I'm always happy to talk to her about her ideas about what more we could do to improve the experience of the travelling public in Wales.
Josh Fenton-Glynn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As a Yorkshire MP, I couldn't be more proud that it's a Labour government who are delivering this change.
Yeah.
Can I urge the Secretary of State to look again at the Calder Valley line, which needs electrification, perhaps as part of phase 3 of this process, something which was promised by the party opposite in 2015 but then dropped after the election. So could we please look at that again?
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for raising the Calder Valley line and the importance of further electrification of the network. If I may, and in the interest of time, I will ask the Rail Minister to write to him with further information on that, but I appreciate that it will be important for his constituents.
Sarah Russell.
Deputy Speaker. Northern Powerhouse Rail will be great for economic growth across the north, and that will very much benefit my constituency. My constituency is geographically located in such a way that it should be great to travel to London, to Liverpool and to Manchester. Sadly, at the moment, it is usually terrible for travelling to any of them. Will the Minister please meet with me and talk to me about both accessibility at Sandbach Station, but also the quality and regularity of services across all of those areas, and how we can make Northern Powerhouse Rail deliver for Cheshire?
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for that contribution and appreciate how important it is to improve the quality of rail services to all the destinations that she mentioned. And some of the benefits of the plans that we're proposing today is that in parts of Yorkshire, for example, I appreciate that's a different part of the country, that you could see enhanced services to London. I'd be happy to have a meeting with regional colleagues to discuss the specific issues that she has raised.
Leingham.
Deputy Speaker. And I understand why today the Secretary of State has taken the sensible, long-term decision she has on the future capacity needs on the West Coast Main Line. But for residents in my constituency of Stafford, Eccleshall and the Villagers, who've had 17 years of worrying, it is more years of worrying for them. Can she assure me that she will listen to the concerns of businesses and residents nearby when making decisions about land powers going forward? And can she meet with myself and other impacted Staffordshire MPs to discuss this further?
I thank the honourable lady for her question and for the measured approach with which she has put that. I do know that this is an issue close to the heart of her constituents, and I know that the Minister for Rail is very keen to engage further with her and other affected members on this issue, and I can assure her that he will be in touch shortly to discuss the issues and a way forward.
Adam Jurgay.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I welcome the Secretary of State's commitment to improve connections to Manchester Airport, so I hope she'll support my calls for a direct line between Stoke-on-Trent railway station, which serves most of my constituents in Newcastle and Manchester Airport. As the Secretary of State heard from my colleague from Stafford and from Lichfield, a number of Staffordshire colleagues, whilst welcoming the intent and ambition of this statement, have concerns and questions about the impact locally. I've heard from countless people in Newcastle Lyme with their experience of the disgraceful and failed HS2 project. People in my constituency want clarity, to be heard and to know that there will be no repeat of the distress and destruction they were forced to live with. I'm grateful to her offering us a meeting with the Rail Minister, but I say to the Secretary we would benefit hugely from a meeting with her as soon as possible.
I'd be very happy to join that meeting that I have already committed to on behalf of the Rail Minister, and I think given the breadth of issues that have been raised today, I think that would be appropriate. And just on the issue of direct service from Stoke to Manchester Airport, I do know that West Midlands Trains is considering the feasibility of amending its Stafford to Crewe service.
Cara Thankmissel.
Speaker, I welcome the fact that we are delivering Northern Powerhouse Rail, promised by the Tories, abandoned by the Tories and now delivered by this Labour government. This will make a big difference to my constituents in Bolton North East, but Madam Deputy Speaker, it would be remiss of me not to take this opportunity to put on record my ask of the Secretary of State to work with the Mayor of Greater Manchester on extending the tram line into Bolton North East and also ensuring better services on both Northern Rail and Avanti West Coast services.
I do know that we need to improve the performance on both the Avanti West Coast routes and Northern routes. The Rail Minister and I are both seized of the importance of doing that, and I will also assure her that I'll continue to work with the Mayor of Greater Manchester to ensure that the intercity improvements that we've announced today are properly integrated with those local mass transit improvements that she is advocating.
Jonathan Davies.
Much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I very much welcome this generational investment which will not just benefit rail in the north of England but the whole country through economic growth and regeneration. And I particularly welcome the investment going to Sheffield. That's a city used by my constituents not just as a destination but as a connecting city elsewhere. And bearing Sheffield in mind, can I invite the Minister to not lose sight of the benefits of electrifying the Midland main line south of Sheffield, which remains unelectrified down to South Wigston. That is something that would drive significant growth for people in mid-Derbyshire and benefit the country as a whole.
We did have to take some difficult decisions as part of the spending review this year on electrification, but we are continuing to keep the potential for full electrification of the Midland Main Line under review as part of our plans to decarbonise the railways.
Dr. Alison Gardner.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I welcome the Government's announcements today for Northern Powerhouse Rail. However, in Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, we still sit in stasis, with legacy issues such as the HS2 compound at Yarnfield, which is costing millions. So may I ask the Secretary of State for clarity on plans for our railway services in Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, and plans for HS2 legacy issues such as the Yarnfield compound?
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for raising the issue of the Yarnfield compound. I'm not sure that her and I have actually spoken about this issue directly before, so if I might ask her to write to me with more detail, I'd be happy to come back to her and let her and her constituents know what more we can do to provide certainty in the way forward.
Andrew Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Our region, from our big cities to our small towns, is ambitious for our future. We're hungry to play our part in our country's economic recovery, and we've been impatient for the government to see our potential after so many years of undelivered promises. And the announcement to invest in NPR today shows that this government will meet that ambition head-on. Madam Deputy Speaker, the previous government issued an instruction to the HS2 Phase 2B Hybrid Bill Committee to remove the mid-Cheshire sections of the route from the bill. Can my right honourable friend confirm that the government intends to retain this instruction, or if it intends to withdraw it? And will she, if they do intend to withdraw it, will she write to me with details of the status of any undertakings and assurances made by HS2 to my councils and constituents as part of the petitioning process that would not be delivered for more than a quarter of a century and by an organisation that may by then no longer exist? Thank you.
I do understand the importance of these issues to him and his constituent. I have instructed officials today to resume work on the adapted hybrid bill. And if I may, given the detailed nature of his question, I would like to write back to him in response to ensure I get the information correct.
Lola McAvoy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On this side of the House, we're from the North, we fight for the North, and this Labour government will deliver the economic justice that we deserve in the North. As the Secretary of State, I'm sure will agree, Darlington, my constituency, is the home of the railways and has a proud industrial history of British rail manufacturing. Can she please outline how this investment and this plan will deliver for British rail manufacturing in my constituency and the rest of the North?
I'm left under no illusions, Madam Deputy Speaker, that my honourable friend is from the North and will fight for the North. And having enjoyed a very hospitable evening with her in Darlington at the Hitachi rail manufacturing plant, I know how critical that employer is to her region, and I'm pleased that the announcements that we are making today is not only an investment in rail infrastructure, but it is a down payment on that manufacturing base and their future, and realising the full economic potential of the region.
Final question on this statement, James Nash.
Madam Deputy Speaker, over the past 5 years, per head transport spend in the East Midlands has fallen to just 54% of the UK average, which is the lowest of any region or nation. And rail funding is even more unequal, £175 per head in 2023-24, which is barely 40% of the English average. And of course, HS2 won't be coming to my constituency of Rushcliffe after the Tories scrapped East Midlands leg in October 2023. So while I welcome the ambition and the scale of this announcement today, can I ask the Secretary of State to once more look at electrification of the Midland Main Line, which will have an immediate economic impact and can be delivered in this Parliament?
As I said to my honourable friend earlier, we are keeping this under review. We did have to take the difficult decision not to fund it in the spending review. That's not to say that his constituents aren't benefiting from improvements on the railway, and I know my friend, the local Transport Minister, is particularly excited about the new fleet of East Midlands trains, which are providing a much better passenger experience for his constituents, and we're determined to keep building on those sorts of improvements.
That concludes the statement on the Northern Powerhouse Rail. Point of order, Sarah Perching.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I believe that the Secretary of State has inadvertently misled the House as regard to our voting record. We have always supported more transport in the North. Can I ask the Speaker's advice as to how we correct the record?
To the honourable member for letting the Chair know that she wished to raise this matter. The Chair is not responsible, however, for how the Secretary of State answered her question. We now move on to the next statement, so I'll allow a few moments for the front benches to swap over.